Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be hosting this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, their reasons behind their creative decision making, and what photography means to them. Laney Cole, or better known as Stimpy Cole, a New Jersey-based photographer, has evolved from documenting human stories through event and portrait photography to capturing nature's raw power in the form of storms and skyscapes. Her growing fascination with extreme weather has led her to pursue storm chasing, with plans to head to the US plains in 2026 to photograph tornadoes up close. In this conversation, Laney reflects on her shift towards storm photography and the deep sense of awe that drives her creative process. She shares how patience, timing and intuition play vital roles in capturing fleeting moments when the atmosphere reveals its strength and elegance, from the unpredictable drama of thunderheads to the delicate interplay of light across turbulent skies. She also discusses the sense of camaraderie among storm chasers and her involvement in the Storm Society Discord community, a hub for photographers passionate about documenting the power of nature. Laney offers valuable insights into techniques for safely photographing storms, her creative approach to post-processing, and how she continues to refine her artistic vision. For Laney, storm photography is more than documentation. It's a fusion of science, art and emotion, a way to explore humanity's connection to nature's most dramatic forces. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day Laney, welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Hi Grant, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Excellent. I'm very pleased to have you on. I've been an admirer of your work in a couple of fields for a little while, but particularly want to talk to you today about your storm chasing photography and a little bit about some of the other activities that you've got in that realm. Why don't we start with why you started to be a photographer in the first place and why storms and weather is such a passion?
Okay. I started like most photographers. I've been a shutterbug my whole life. Family events or events with friends growing up, I always ended up being the one with the camera in my hand. And around 2007, I'd say, is when I started to really become serious about photography. Was around the time that you could start using a headshot on social media. So one of my best friends, she had always amazing photos and I wanted to take photos like she did. She was in art school at the time as a photography major. And so I was like, she helped me learn a little bit with Photoshop and stuff. But basically, I went out and I bought myself a Sony CyberShot DSCH7 and started working day and night on headshots. And that eventually, within a couple of months of taking my own photos and editing, led to the opportunity to do some event work. And then from there, that's mainly been my focus is event photography. Sure. Took a break for a little while. And then in about 2022, I guess I would say my interest turned to storms. Okay. I don't know, it's a weird coincidence to have a background in portraits and events and to take love with storms. I just started shooting out my back door behind my house and found I've had a love and a passion for it. And I've been doing it ever since. I guess
I'm really interested in what it is about that particular subject. For a lot of people, a storm comes and the last thing they want to do is go outside, let alone grab the camera and go outside. But I know that there's a very strong community of storm chasing in some parts of the US and here also in Australia, where you have these sort of broad expanse horizons, which give you really good views of the sky and can make a real feature of some of the magnificent cloud formations and the lightning and all the other bits that come along with storms. What is it about them that grabbed your attention in the first place? And what is it that sort of keeps you going?
So I know it's really niche in the world of photography. I think storm photographers make up, I read something about 1% of the photographers out there. So it's definitely a rare passion to have. And I think for me in 2023, I live on the East Coast in New Jersey, and it's very rare that we get tornadoes, but we did get tornadoes. We had an outbreak where I live.
Okay.
And to feel the power of and the beauty of a storm is extremely addictive. I think it's part of it's the wonder, but there's also a little bit of danger involved with it.
Sure.
And that might be part of the beauty, but I just know that I didn't have an opportunity to photograph the particular tornado I saw then. I saw it from about a mile and a half away, but I think I've been chasing that feeling ever since, whether through, yeah, I think we find a beauty in this nature, in the almost the violence in nature
Yeah,
and the power behind it.
I guess the thing I notice, I've done very little storm photography myself. I think I've managed a couple of lightning shots where the lightning actually looks like lightning and not just a blob in the distance. But I think
Right.
you're quite right. There is that element of danger in amongst beauty of seeing something that has that kind of power, and it does change the way that you look at the world. Is that what it's like for you in terms of looking at what you're seeing and what you're experiencing, the wind, the rain, hail, etc.? How does it make you feel when you're out in the field?
To me, it's the ultimate rush. There's nothing that really I've found in my life that has compared to it. There's the feeling right before a storm of the heat and the humidity and the moisture and just being out there. And then all of a sudden you see this beautiful, amazing thing in front of you. And afterwards there's the outflow with this cool rush. I don't know. It's very hard to describe like how that makes one feel, but it's definitely unlike anything I've ever felt. And the beauty of having something in front of you like so powerful and something that that no one else really notices or appreciates. I don't know. There's a feeling of like satisfaction and like completion when you actually
Yeah.
do capture lightning and it's not a blown out blob. It's probably one of the hardest things I think out there to capture.
I think certainly with my experience of it, I can't say that it is definitely a rush, but I can't say that it's something that I want to experience a lot. And I think it takes a certain kind of person that wants to do that. I guess, what is it that makes you that kind of person?
I don't quite know. Growing up, my mother used to joke. My favorite show, I don't know if you had it in Australia, was Unsolved Mysteries. And
Yep.
I always liked the darker side of nature and things, not to get too gruesome or anything, but my mother
Sure.
used to call me the queen of human misery and despair. I don't know. And I was a psychology major in college. I wanted to be a forensic psychologist or criminologist. And I don't know. I guess it's an element of danger. And I guess it's an element of an undercurrent in my life as far as being attracted to the scarier things that people might not otherwise want to approach. And I think that's one of the things that drew me to storm photography in the beginning or storm chasing in the beginning was there was because I'd always, even growing up on the East Coast, when you would hear about these giant tornadoes in the plains and the people and how they were affected by it, that
Yep.
would stay with you. And I remember when Moore happened in 2013, I wasn't yet there was an EF5 in Moore, Oklahoma, and I wasn't yet into tornadoes, but that stayed with me, as well as El Reno, where there were 3 storm chasers killed, and unfortunately. And I spent a whole year in 2022 studying kind of the question you're asking me right now. Why would someone want to put themselves out there to begin with in the path of a tornado? And I really wanted to understand the psychology of storm chasing at first. And that eventually over time, through watching some of the people that are out there now, I realized how beautiful how beautiful these storms really are. And that made it become a passion for
Right.
me.
Really interested there in that study you were doing on that psychology, studying psychology and working out how people think and how people's
Right.
emotional responses to things changes their view on and outlook on a whole range of aspects of their life. I think
Right.
that's a really interesting sort of area to focus on. And I'm interested in understanding a little bit more about what you found in that in terms of
how people responded to, obviously you would have had to have asked storm chasers, okay, why do you do this and how do you feel when you're doing it, similar to what I've asked you. And
Right.
I'm just interested in what their responses were like.
I think most of what I've found are a lot of these people have either grown up with storms in their backyards
Uh-huh.
or have been chasing most of their lives since they were kids. And it all stemmed from a fear of storms with a lot of them and wanting to understand storms. And I think that's like a natural response. Like I grew up in South Florida where we had hurricanes. And I remember being very young and my dad explaining to me like what to expect and so that I wouldn't be scared. And the same thing with lightning. And I think a lot of the storm chasers that I know that live in Nebraska or Oklahoma, that's how they started out. But one of the things that I realized when I was studying the El Reno tornado in 2022 was just there's this drive that people have to capture this one of a kind event in a way that no one else in the world could capture it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you see so many of them out there going after the same storm. Is everybody has their own perspective, but there's like a never-ending need to see the next big storm. Or
Yeah. Is there an element of wanting to get closer to get a particular view or a particular feeling when you're there and wanting to be as close as possible without putting yourself into physical danger?
because the line has definitely crossed, right? Like back when in the 70s, when they first started doing like storm spotting and things like that, they would stay out far away and they would always,
Yeah.
the number one thing in storm chasing is never get too close. But now you have people out there re-timmer with the Dominator going inside of tornadoes and other chasers coming up right up behind him. I think there's an element of wanting to get close to get the best shot, but there's also wanting to understand the tornado, like as far as a science perspective.
Yeah.
But the majority of people that like I know and that I work with through the streams and community groups, it seems to be like who can get the best shot. And it's
Yeah.
without risking their safety too much.
Yeah.
But sometimes you'll hear them, the bug will bite them and they'll say, I know this is stupid. I know this is dumb. I need to see this. I need to get closer. And they will take that chance. And I don't know, I can relate with that with with even the storms that I shoot from home. Like I'm hanging outside of a second story window.
Wow.
I mean, just to capture a lightning bolt. That you have this physical need to see this thing that's so spectacular and so phenomenal. Like you're willing to take risks and chances I don't think really exist in any other kinds of landscape photography, or at least that's my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we're a little bit of the wild man, the wild bunch in the photography world. To be honest,
Definitely agree with that. I'm interested in the ways that people take their images as well. There seems to be, with most landscape, there's a spectrum of people that go from extreme planners. They're poring over Google Maps and photographers ephemeris, et cetera, and they're trying to work out the exact time that they want to be in a certain location, all the way through to people that just basically jump in the car, decide when they've started heading down the road where they're going to go. With storm photography, there's a blend. You've got to do a blend of both because A, you've got to plan and be in the right place for the weather system to either form a tornado or a supercell or whatever. But then you don't know what it's going to do. So you've basically got to go where it goes or get out of its way if you don't want to get swept up in the actual tornado. How is that sort of for you? Is that an accurate description of kind of what you need to be thinking about before you even go out?
That is definite what you need to be thinking about before you go out. You need to, even here with local, you hit it right on the nail on the head. Like that is exactly what you need to do. Even here in New Jersey, I captured so much more in 2024 with going out and planning and actually going into the field and putting the work in, like driving an hour to follow a storm in. Because if you just allow it to come to you, the lightning could be behind the rain.
Sure.
And you're not going to see anything. So even whether you're chasing local or you're chasing on the plane local and you have to do a 40-minute drive, or you're on the plains and you're doing a 6-hour drive to get to a weather system, there's definitely a large amount of planning. And the planning can be as far as 3 to 5 days in advance.
Wow.
That's one of the major things is forecasting and learning forecasting to the point where you can actually get yourself where you need to be. And I think that's another part of the challenge of storm chasing that's so interesting is learning that side too, right? Because those kind of things don't, like math and statistics and those kind of things, it doesn't come easy, at least not to me as an artistic type. But there's definitely the extra added challenge of that side of it, right? Like checking the models and checking forecasts before you go out to capture this beautiful thing. In addition to knowing your camera and knowing how to take a photo.
Yeah, the technical side of photography is difficult enough without then adding some of the technical meteorological stuff that you got to learn.
Right. And then
Have you gone about learning that stuff?
The technical side or the
of both.
for the storm? Okay, the technical side has come over time. Like I said to you, basically I was starting over again because I had taken a long break between when I had actually last touched a working camera. It had been almost 10 years. I think one of the biggest things for me was taking the camera off auto and going into manual and standing in the backyard and taking photos of clouds and beginning to understand exposure times and aperture and the basics and doing that again. The editing, thankfully, never left that knowledge. I picked that up again quickly.
Sure.
But a lot of it has been self-taught, fortunately, and trial and error. And I guess that's like the fun part for me. That's the easier part. It's the mathematical, the forecasting side that it's a little bit more the challenging part for me in the storm photography. But
So where have you gone to find that sort of information out? Obviously, you can find out information off the weather forecasting channels and so forth that are available, publicly available. But as you said, understanding the model, understanding what's likely to happen based on the models that you're seeing and the math around it. How have you gone about digging into that?
what I've done is I'll look at the soundings on Pivotal Weather, but there's a chaser out there named Rachel Sanner, and she has a Tornado Titans is their group or her name, and she has countless videos on how to read soundings, how to look at models, really the storm chasing 101.
Yeah.
There was that. And I also have done a couple webinars also through Girls Who Chase. And they really break down the basics for you and teach you. Like Jen Walton hosts it with a couple other of the female storm chasers out there. And they are a great community also as well, as far as empowering women to learn. And the general public, there are men that attend the webinars. There's so many people out there willing to help. And even stormtrack.org, some of the big original Warren Fadley, he's on there and he's willing to help anyone who has a question, whether it's on photography or we were just talking about with the forecasting, and he's one of the original storm photographers. Having those outlets, the weather community there to help you and help you grow and learn, it's really valuable. And it's something very special about just the weather community as a whole. There's so many resources out there to learn from. But yeah, definitely YouTube videos is a great way to start. And then just practicing over and over again. If you have a system coming in, just going in and looking at the soundings for your area, maybe even Googling some of the terms for yourself to learn what they mean, such as cape, things like that, wind shear. Those are really important too. So I think that makes sense.
No, that's great. And you mentioned the community, and I think both within the photography community, but also within the specialist field of storm photography, there seems to be quite a strong community. And you've mentioned that there's a lot of people there that are more than willing to help out and give advice, etc. How welcoming have you found it in terms of getting access to people that you want to learn from?
Oh, I found the access to actually be quite easy. Like I said to you, through some of the message boards or even on YouTube, just asking a question, they've always been accessible. And without name dropping too much. I can't believe the amount of knowledge out there that they're willing to, that some of the older storm photographers and chasers are willing to pass on. But I think one of the things that makes it so different is because, and this is so cliche, storm chasing and storm photography really does save lives. And I think the older generation is willing to pass that on so that we can continue on the mission of getting the warnings out, because that's one of the most important things also behind what we do. If you see something that's dangerous, such as a wall cloud, a rotating wall cloud, or a funnel cloud, you need to call that in to the weather service. And I think that's why everybody is so open and welcome to passing on their own knowledge, is because it's almost like a mission, right? You need to keep, people want to keep this thing going for the betterment of the community. And with a lot of the cutbacks, I know with there's been a lot of support of one another through that. Like government cutbacks has made it eyes on the ground more important than ever.
Yeah.
So, you just reach out. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
Your turn.
You've also become part of a particular community. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Discord channel and so forth associated with that?
Oh, sure. Okay. So part of what I do when I'm not out photographing storms or skyscapes is I'm a moderator for storm chaser Freddie McKinney, and his group, his team is called the Storm Society. And we have a Discord community, about 600 individuals. We just started it about 5 months ago, and I'm admin of that community. So I built the server out and did all that and make sure it's up and running and it continues running. And basically it's a group of storm chasers and chase enthusiasts and weather enthusiasts. And that's basically the group that I belong to. It's Freddie McKinney, his father, John McKinney, who's also a chaser, and a few other chasers. And that's how I spend most of my time, when I'm not out actually chasing storms myself locally. And who knows, maybe someday in the future, I hope to maybe be able to team up with them, maybe go out on a chase. I know one of our fellow friend, because it's strange because we've all actually become friends over time through working together, even though we live in different places. Yeah. There's about 12 of us that are really close. And one of the guys that we're friends with, who's a mod on the stream, actually got to go out and follow Freddie for the day, photograph one of the bigger tornadoes last summer. Awesome. And he carries around a Polaroid camera. So he got all his tornado shots on a Polaroid, which was really cool to see. The goal is hopefully next time, maybe I'll make it out there and be able to see a tornado with them also, which is my dream and my plan for 2026, my goal.
Fantastic. With that community, what are the sorts of things what are the main topics of conversation? Is it where things are happening, when things are happening? What's the vibe inside the community?
Okay, so mostly what we try to do is stick to weather chat and weather conversations. So say we have one channel that's weather chat. So people of different levels will go in there. The more advanced people will be willing to give advice to maybe the newer people on what we were talking about, on forecasting tips, explaining what the system is going to do as it moves across the country and things like that. So it's a really good place to learn, but also to network and to make friends. And also we share photography as well on all different levels. We have a weather media section as well as a in real life media section. So people will share either cloud photos or dog photos. So that's fun too. But it's one of the things I guess about is it's really keeping a community and that and building a community, which I think for a streamer is very important. And that's one of the reasons I think that our team has been so successful over the last year is we have a special community that really does care about one another and want to help one another learn and grow. And I'm excited and happy to be a part of it.
Certainly sounds awesome.
Oh, I love it. It's great. But yeah, I'll usually, when I'm putting up a storm stream link, I'll usually share in the comments underneath. I'll do a thread and I'll post the Discord channel also, or the Discord server link also. So We're growing steadily and surely, and it's one of the best weather communities on YouTube, Discord out there, in my opinion. And that's one of those things with storm photography I think is really important too. And I think really with any photography, it's like finding your tribe, finding your people.
Definitely, yeah.
To support and learn from one another. And
Yeah.
that's been invaluable as well. I know I have people ask me all the time, oh, how do you shoot lightning? Oh, can you show me? Can you teach me? And that's one of those things there that we can do is suggest the best equipment or suggest the best lenses or what those kind of things. So.
I don't often talk about gear and technique and whatever, but you brought it up. So I'm going to ask, how do you shoot lightning?
So my lightning is a little different. Not different. I don't know. I don't know how many people will actually admit to this. Where I live in New Jersey, I listened to Lori Grace's podcast a couple weeks ago, from a few years ago, and she's able to chase the monsoons. She can see them coming from miles, right? Her storms, and she captures amazing cloud to ground lightning strokes. My lightning, our storms are low based, so they are literally right on top of you by the time they make it. So you can't really sit there and keep the lens clicking while you're going. So I cheat a little, which I found out is actually very common, is I keep the video rolling. I got, especially for storm chasing, I got a basic camera, but I got a Canon Rebel T7 and worried more about the lenses. So I have my zoom lens and I have my 50 nifty, a fixed 50 millimeter. And I just keep when I do lightning, I shoot with the 1855 that came with it. So I'll usually shoot at 18 millimeter and I'll use the movie file and I'll keep that rolling. And then I'll do screen grabs after and then stack them through Photoshop.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then clean it up. And really, the cameras are so great these days that they're so much better than they used to be. Like my first camera was, I think, 8 megapixels, where now I don't think you really lose that much. Warren Faidley gave me that tip. It's almost next to impossible because I asked the question, should I invest in a lightning trigger, a sensor?
Yeah, I think that's a question a lot of people have is, do I need a lightning trigger?
And that was my big question. I wanted to get one for my birthday this year. And they told me, don't even bother. Just keep that movie file, keep the video rolling and then extract because you're really not going to lose too much in post. But I would to eventually someday actually snap a photograph of lightning. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have as many opportunities where I am here in New Jersey, so I can't really afford to miss it.
Sure. I've got to be honest.
That's my insider secret.
The main way I've had success with sort of single images is having obviously you need it to be dark. So, you can't be in a very light polluted area. And so if you're doing it, you've got to do it in the dark, have a long exposure and just wait for a few strikes of lightning. And occasionally that will come up looking okay, unless it just... There's so much lightning going on that it just blows out the entire image or just creates a blob in one side of the image. So the ones that I've had is something like a 15 or a 30-second exposure and it just sits there waiting for the light to appear. And when it does, and if it doesn't, then you just delete that one.
I tried that this year. You had it right on point, and I think you use, what's been brought up to me is to use around like a 9.0 aperture. Like a 9 aperture within shots and with a 15 to 30 second. I tried that this year, but all I caught was just the sky like pink. So I don't know if I did something wrong. I don't know. The lightning too close. It didn't work for me. So I'm going to keep until I get somewhere where we do have more constant lightning. But I missed a lot of lightning last year trying to capture with the long exposure, like you just described. And
I'm definitely going to try the video
so much.
version now. That sounds brilliant. I just never thought about it.
If you have a good camera, you really, even like if you're using an iPhone, right, and you're at 6,000 frames, you're not going to lose that much.
Yeah, true.
Cameras are at 4K now. You're not going to lose too much taking a screenshot and then stacking the image. And like it's been explained to me, to the untrained eye, they can't tell the difference.
No, this is
you
it.
know.
And to be honest, it's been said on this channel a few times. Nobody that looks at your image really cares about how you made it. All they care
It's
what it looks like. Does it look good?
the finished product.
I'm interested in how photographers define success in their photography. What does success in your photography look like for you?
So success in photography to me is finding your own style, right? Your own, and watching your photos evolve over time. I think I've started posting on Blue Sky about almost a year ago.
Yeah.
And I know when I first started, a lot of my photos were in regular landscape mode. And over time, I found that that doesn't work so great where I live here in New Jersey, where it's more densely populated. A lot of what I do is like skyscapes and cloudscapes, even with like my storms. If I go portrait mode and being able to take that risk and go against the grain and start posting and taking photos that way, wedging myself in between a tree and a house to capture a little segment, to take chances like that, to me, that's growth. And I think that kind of defines success for me, and watching people react to that. And I've heard it said on the show before that the likes don't matter as much if you're happy with it. Sometimes it's the photos that we like that others don't like, or the
Absolutely.
ones that, but definitely watching the photos change over time, that has been absolutely rewarding, and taking risks and taking chances and finding a style of my own, to the point where you start seeing more of like the way that you take the photo of a cloud done by other people, picking that up. That to me has been like the definition of success in a way, and growth in photography.
Yeah, nice. How would you say your style has evolved? Obviously, you've mentioned that you've started to take some chances in looking
Right.
at your photography. That experimentation, I think, obviously comes with potential for, it should come with disappointment that, okay, that didn't work. And so now
Right.
I need to adjust and experiment. How do you deal with that disappointment, and how do you deal with that experimentation and change as you go and adjust and learn?
So I think what you're asking, one of the things when I got my zoom lens last year, right after Christmas, my 55 250, I noticed that a lot of my photos had a lot of noise in them.
Yep.
So I really had to, and I missed a lot of storm photos that way, was because of the noise. So I really had to like step back and go back to basics to try to see what I was doing wrong, and make sure because I couldn't figure out at first, okay, is it the noise? Is my housing, is that dirty? Does it need to be cleaned? Like, why are my photos looking almost dirty in a way?
Yeah.
And just going back to basics and making sure that everything, that the camera's clean, the lenses are all clean. Okay, so that's not it. Almost like a checklist. So that's not it. All right, so now let's check, make sure my lighting is matching up with my exposure time, or make sure that, I don't know what I'm saying here or what I'm trying to say. Just willing to take the risk and saying, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to my old style. And that's worked for me. But,
Yeah.
and just constantly trying and never giving up. And then just, what, when you find satisfaction, when you begin to know what defines, what you like and what makes you happy and what a win is to you,
Sure.
and being comfortable with that.
Yeah. Can you
I don't
share?
think it made any sense.
Yeah, it made sense to me. Yeah. Can you
Like,
share?
I've been down with the flu for a week, so
Okay.
I wasn't really able to prepare very well.
No, you're all good. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the way that it's going. It's all sounds great.
Thank you.
Can you share a story in where you've gone out and truly felt awe, the experience is actually showing you how small we are in the grand scheme of things?
Okay, I've told you before. So where I live here in New Jersey, when I take photos from home, I like to go to my second story window. I live up on a hill,
Uh-huh.
and I call it my spotter hill, my spotter hill. And because that's how you're able to see storms here, right? That's the best you can do, is if you get to a higher elevation. And was it last year, a storm came through, and I had been tracking it for about 4 hours at least. And it finally came through, and I had my camera going and I had my phone going at the same time. And I have a perfect view to the west. So that's why I use this particular second story window.
Yeah.
So I can see the whole western horizon except for one spot in the middle where there's a big oak tree. So I've got a northeast view and a south or a northwest view and a southwest view. And in came a tornado warning storm, and it was just the outflow and the wind and just not even so much the photograph. That the photos that I caught didn't matter as much because I really didn't capture much that day. But it paid off because the wind in your head, in your face, and the rain in your hair, and the power, the rush behind that rush of wind that comes with the outflow or the whale's mouth of a storm. It was like, here it is. This thing I've been waiting to come for 4 hours or even longer, probably waiting 2 days at that point.
Sure.
There was a feeling of exhilaration that I can't explain. And I always go back to that day. And it was actually quite a powerful outflow dominant storm that we had that took out, I believe, like a giant awning at a restaurant on the beach.
Yep.
Like all the guests had to run inside and seek shelter. And
Oh, wow.
here I am hanging out my window taking photos of it. And that was a pretty incredible experience. And I have a pretty good whale's mouth photo there of a storm coming in that is obviously falling apart. But it was an incredible experience. And it's just to feel that again, it's priceless. And it's definitely worth the time that you put in waiting for the storms to arrive. And I think no matter what, whether you're taking photos of mountains or seascapes or sunsets, and just the satisfaction of when that moment comes there's nothing like it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think photography has taught you about nature and the natural world?
That's an interesting question. For me, I think that photography has taught me the biggest thing for me, and I think you'll see this in a lot of my skyscapes and cloudscapes, is that there can be beauty even in just a little tiny sliver of sky. You know what I mean? Like sometimes I'll take my zoom lens, I'll have it all the way at 250, and I have friends jokingly refer to them as my Jupiter-esque or otherworldly photos.
Okay.
They're usually just a little sliver of sky, but even in that there's beauty. No matter where you look, like you're bound to find something.
Yeah.
And even if it looks gray and hazy, you still in post, you can go and pull something out of it. There's some kind of color or texture or something to be brought out. There's always something to be seen. And if it's not in the sky, then maybe it's in a flower or a tree or a rock. There's always, those are things I didn't really pay attention to a few years ago that now I've come to appreciate more. It's just the beauty and the wonder of the natural world. And it just reminds you that no matter what's going on in your life and no matter where, if you're going through a dark period or a challenging period, just go out and have a look around even where you live. There's something beautiful that will ground you and connect you back to the beauty of nature and the truth within yourself.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You mentioned processing. I'm interested in the thinking around processing from various photographers. Do you strike into it after getting the images that you're collecting and straight into editing immediately, or do you leave things to marinate for a bit? I guess I know in storm chasing circles there tends to be a bit of urgency in getting the photo out onto social media. Do you feel pressure for that at all?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I would say storm chasing is different in that, and that's where Lightroom helps a little bit, or an editor in your phone. You want to get those images out immediately, especially if there's an urgent situation going, or you want to get it out before another chaser in your area gets it out.
Yeah.
Where I live, there might be like 3 or 4. So with those, I might have included some of those. I'm not sure. They're definitely on my website. But those are more usually like phone. I'll snap those with my phone and quickly put them up on social media.
Yeah.
So there's not so much an urgency to edit with those, let's say, and then I'll go back and edit those later, you know what I'm saying, to make it more artful or more appealing.
Yeah.
But as for the photo you were saying, I think maybe it's the fact because of the storm chasing, that feel of urgency. I have that also sometimes with my skyscapes and things. Like, when you have a good photo, right? And
Absolutely.
you just want to get it out. You just want to get to work on it. And So I wouldn't say that every time I do it, or every time I have a great photo, but most times, yeah, I'll usually get on it right away.
Uh,
But sometimes I like when you go back and you look and you realize there's a hidden gem. There's those too. So it's also fun to go back. And
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
we all know when there's a golden, amazing photo to share. And you're like, oh, I've got to get that out there. And sometimes you'll just get it out there, even with the water spots and with the,
Yeah, no, I definitely know. It's just you have a feeling of urgency or a feeling of competition in some way of getting it out, or even just raw excitement, and
I,
worry
you
less
know,
about the technicality of the edit and more about the immediacy of showing people what you've captured.
and especially with, say, like with social media, when you belong to Arts Collective or you have friends on there, right?
Yeah,
And you want to, hurry and get it out there. Or sometimes you want to participate in a prompt day or a theme day. So you got to sit on that photo for a little while, and that can be hard to do. But
yeah,
and I think that's interesting though, right? Compared to photography of 20 years ago, where we didn't have these circles of people we were sharing our photos with regularly. So you could edit and work on something over time to get it just right. Where I think now we're quickly running into Lightroom, and it's so tempting to not just dehaze, clarity a little, tweak the curve, and maybe add a filter and pop it out there.
you know,
The temptation's definitely there, but I stay away from auto and filter as much as I can. That's my new challenge.
uh, do you print any of your work at all?
I've I've been asked to I've had a couple requests, and that's something that I'm looking to do next. I definitely have been working on setting up a website for that. I just haven't picked where I want to go with my photos, but
Yeah,
or if I want to do it on my own. But I do have a couple of my own around the house. I have an Aurora shot from 2020, from last year, a year ago, on my office wall, my second floor attic office wall,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah. But I definitely think some of them definitely could be print. And when you print, you definitely want to pay attention more to those edits. It's not
Oh,
the same
absolutely.
as when
Yeah,
you're putting it out on
yeah,
social
5 minutes in
media.
Lightroom isn't going to cut it.
No, not at all. No, not at all. There's a few that I've definitely are print worthy in my mind, that probably about 2 or 3 photos I've taken in the last year. And for an artist, I think that's pretty good. If you have 2 or 3 photos you feel that are print worthy, I think that's a pretty good year.
Absolutely.
And then that's somewhere I want to take my photography. If the storm chasing fails through, I would, if I don't make it out to the plains, like I would like to get much better with my technique to the point where I'm able to do prints of the sky or of landscapes.
Sure.
So
Have you ever struggled to find inspiration with your photography?
not really. No, sometimes I find myself getting into ruts where I'm not in the mood to go out and take a photo.
Yep.
But I think when I look around myself, and especially if I go online, there's always someone there to inspire me or to challenge me, whichever it is. You see someone take a shot and you're like, that's right. This is why I love this. Or I think I could do something like that. So you find it's not too hard to find the spark again. And I'm grateful for that because, like I said, I stepped away for a while from photography and, excuse me, and art for a while because of personal reasons. And it just, fortunately, I have not experienced that. And we're going on almost 5 years. So I think that's a pretty good streak of not being discouraged. So
That is a very good streak of not being discouraged. Yeah.
and not discouraged, just losing interest to the point where you sell your camera
Yeah. Yeah.
and you give up and you decide, okay, I'm going to go into another area or another field for a while. Or I'm not going to create for a while. You definitely don't want to get in the long rut, but it happens sometimes, the short ones.
Yeah. What do you see as photography's place in society, and where do you see its future?
Okay. Photography's place in society. So one of the things that, and I think I've mentioned blue sky before, but I think one of the things with photography and what's so important to me and why I'll push out 3 or 5 images a week versus worrying about really getting that edit done, a photo done solid is it, we're bringing beauty into people's lives, especially right now,
Mm.
where with politics in America, with everything being so difficult. I think that photography can enlighten and bring joy and beauty to the world and into people's lives, but it can also bring us together. And I hope, just like with the weather community that I spoke about earlier, about how we love and care for one another, I hope that the photography continues to do that in the future as well. And I pray that I don't think AI can ever replace that either. I think there's something to the human. We have an eye, our experience, and I think it's so important for that to be behind a good image, because you can always tell an AI image when you see it, right?
Yeah.
Just that people don't give up and they just keep going with it. And I think it definitely brings us together as a society, and it contributes beauty into the world. And it's such a necessary art form. And it's, as a daughter of an artist, my father is a muralist. Both my siblings are muralists. For me, it's photography. And I have such a love for it. And I think the people that do have the same love.
Yeah, fantastic. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
Wow. The best piece of I said best piece of advice. The best piece of advice I think that's ever been given to me is probably to be yourself and to trust your eye and to not listen to what other people criticism is good, right? Like constructive criticism is good, but I think trusting your eye and believing in yourself and trusting your gut, especially when it comes to storm chasing, trusting your gut is very important, and believing in the knowledge that you have and the experience you have behind you to carry you further. The worst piece of advice I think I have ever been given might have been that video advice, because it allowed me to lax on my morals when I could have focused more on the long exposure time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I could have mastered it a little better. I don't know. I really haven't gotten bad advice when it comes to my photography. I mean, or maybe that's a little bit of a joke, but I think not relying too much on post edit and getting better with your own technique. And yeah, that's probably partly the worst advice that I was given ever. Was someone once said that I over-edited my photos too much, and that really got into my head. And it never left, and it stayed with me. Yeah. But other than that, I really haven't gotten any bad advice.
I think every photographer out there gets that sometimes, where somebody says, "Oh, this looks over-edited," or even worse, that's AI.
That's AI, right?
Yeah.
I had a question for you with that, and I was wondering your perspective on it, because I had a couple questions for you. I think a lot of the photographers that I know through storm chasing, they're on the younger side, right? And I know I definitely did that in the 2000s. Is there a such thing as over editing? Do you know what I'm saying? That seems to be the new trend, right? Like, where you can really tell photos are over edited to the point where it looks AI. I don't know if you know what I'm talking.
I
If
do
you've
know what
seen
you
that out
mean.
there.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how you feel about it as a more experienced photographer, more experienced landscape photography, because it bothers me personally. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm okay with anybody doing anything they want. So even if they want to
Right.
include AI componentry in their image, if that's if they're happy with their image that way, fine. I don't see myself as anyone that should be telling anyone how
What
to
to
get
do?
into it, how to do it. I can say I don't like it, or I can say that style doesn't grab me. But if somebody wants to do that, fine. It really doesn't bother me. So I've done composites. A lot of people forget that when photography first started, I think it was within 2 or 3 years, composite photography had already become a thing. And
Right.
certainly in the first sort of 20 years of photography's history, there were many really well-regarded photographers who got a lot of flack from people that said, that's not really photography. And they were doing composite work. But what they were doing is they were trying to express an emotion or a feeling or a point of view that showed that in a way that they wanted to do, that they couldn't get either technically or physically or whatever through a single frame. And if you want to use composites, if you want to add AI to your image, if you want to do that, It's all good. It depends on what your form of expression is. I know there's photographers that also do mixed media where they'll paint acrylic or oil over the top of their photography. It's all art and it's all good in my mind. It's when I look at something, do I like it or not like it? How do I respond to it? That depends on how I'm feeling about that image at the time. And yeah, for me, it's not really a problem. Again, it comes down to I don't care how you made the image.
I think I meant
I care about my response to it.
right. I think I meant more from like a landscape and nature
Sure.
standpoint, right?
If you want to be a nature photographer, then, adding in sky replacement and adding in rainbows or adding colour or changing the colour. I don't think you should do that, and I do that as little as possible. It's not to say that I've never done it. I've tried it. I've played around with it just to see, okay, does this work? How do these techniques actually work so that I'm better informed about when they're used and when they're not used, or should I use it? But from my perspective, if somebody wants to do that, fine, it's okay. I've done a few astro composites where from the same place, there's one in particular that I'm thinking of. I was actually in the UK at Portland Bill, which is on the south coast in Dorset, and took a shot of the lighthouse there at Portland Bill and managed to get a light beam in the one shot, did a bit of light painting on a rock in the foreground. And I knew the Milky Way was coming up. And I planned this way. This shot was totally planned. But I knew with the light from the lighthouse that I was never going to get a good shot of the actual Milky Way rising. So I walked the other side of the lighthouse facing to where the Milky Way was going to come up over the horizon, over the sea, and got the shots there. So I knew the timing of when the core was going to rise, et cetera, et cetera. So I sat there and planned it all out. And this is one of my intricate planning moments. I don't do a lot of that now.
Like storm chasing, yeah.
Yeah, but knew what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, where it was going to happen, set that up. But to put the image together so that you had the Milky Way and the beam of light coming out of the lighthouse and the rock illuminated and everything, I did a comp. And that was a deliberate choice by me to do that. So again, I'm not one, but what I can say is that every element of that was shot on the same night in the same location. Physically, I had to move my tripod to go and get the Milky Way. Couldn't do it any other way. So shoot me.
Yeah, I did it with I tried it too with the Aurora, the G5 that we had last year.
Yeah.
On October 10th, where I had several frames as it moved across the sky.
Yeah.
To blend them to show the whole experience instead of posting 9 different photos.
Exactly.
That's fine. That I understand. And
I do get there are people that want to get it's 100% done in one single frame. And I admire people that can do that with everything that they want to do. But I also look a little bit askance at people, though, that don't say, oh, I barely edited it or I didn't edit it at all. And I go, yeah, but looks a bit flat because you've basically left it kind of like a raw file. Raw files mostly. So,
sure.
But if that's how they want to express their photography, fine. That's me going, I don't quite like that style because I prefer a little bit more contrast and texture in my images. And I like them to be less flat.
I think most of us do.
But yeah, from my perspective, fill your boots, do what you want. That's not a problem to me. It's more, I think, what I do have an issue with is people that get very prescriptive around what other people should do and where they're making comments on social media and saying, oh, this is rubbish because you've done a sky replacement. If the guy wants to, or girl wants to do a sky replacement, so what? You don't have to like it.
Right. Yeah, I think that the problem is, I think it's more within storm photography, right? Like how, or even with any nature, right? When you're photographing an event, how much license do you have to, because you're documenting that event? Right.
Yeah, but I think that comes down to what's the purpose of your photography? Are you trying to document an event or are you trying to create art? I'm not saying you
Right.
can't do both in the one image, but if you are purely creating art and you're not trying to show that as it actually was,
Right.
then whatever it is that you're documenting, then yes, you have full license to go and do whatever you like if that's your aim.
Absolutely.
But if you're trying
Right.
to sell an image to a newspaper or a news service or something and say, hey, this is a documentation of what I saw, then better bloody well keep it close to what you saw, because if you go too far, it's art, it's not a documentation. That's
Like
my
shooting
opinion.
a rainbow cutting through a tornado. I've
Yeah.
seen that several times. It does happen. It has been captured, but I've also seen people try to add things it doesn't need to be more interesting. It already.
No, this is it. As I say, it depends on what they're trying to do. If they're trying to create art, then fine. If they're trying to say this is what I actually saw and it wasn't what they
Well,
actually saw, and it comes down to the transparency and how people put their work out there. I'm more than happy to say, hey, this is a composite, or hey, this is how I created it. I usually put my camera settings and some detail in the text of what I put out there, simply because it saves 99% of the questions. What camera did you use and what settings did you use? Because you do get those questions. So I don't get a lot of those questions, which is nice, but it also says you too could do this.
oh, that's true. Yeah, I need to start. I saw that with your photos, and I've seen them with other photos, with other posts. But it's definitely you want to include that information with your photos, and I think it's great because like we talked about earlier, with continuing to pass knowledge on.
Yeah, and that's part of
Yes.
why I do that. But I also think that if I'm going to post a composite or an image that is less than a true representation of what I've seen, that to be honest, that's the style that I'm trying to evoke, is something that is, this is what I saw. But if I do something that's a little bit more out there in terms of composites or something else, then you won't see the camera details on that shot because it would be pointless, because you're not going to be able to go somewhere and take that shot anyway, you know.
Yourself, exactly. Interesting. Yeah, I think
Pardon me.
so I think that I see what you're saying with that because with my storm photography, I think with my storms that I do capture, a lot of even like the good ones are because it is so spur of the moment. Oh, I need to capture this quickly. So I'll
Yeah.
just use I might have my phone or use whatever I have on me. And so it's not really, say, a professional like photography shot. Like I have a lightning shot from last year where there's lightning shooting out of the top of a cloud and I wasn't able to capture that on my phone. My camera, I captured it on my phone, but the quality is a little less than it always will be. So then when I do post it next to things that I do like my skyscapes, where those are, or my landscape photography, where that does have more technical, more things that I would need to include. There's completely different styles, right? And I think you either want to make it clear that these were taken while I was out chasing or while I was spotting. And then this photography here is my work. That's my more personal side. So
Yeah.
I completely understand what you're saying there.
Yeah.
But it would be nice if I could someday get them to reach a happy medium, happy middle, where I could
Yeah, I think
capture like,
everyone sort of searches for that to a certain degree. But
Mhm.
I do think that you can, as I say, you can create a documentation of an event or a place that is
right,
true enough, but still artistic without going over the top. And
right,
coming back to what you said at the beginning, being something being over edited so that it looks like an AI. As I say, if you want to do that's fine, but it's not necessarily something that's for me.
no. I mean, it's up to everyone. It's up to, what they're,
Is it?
who are we to judge what somebody else does, but it's just not my personal taste either.
That's
I would
exactly
agree
it.
with you
Yeah.
there. Even a year ago, because of that comment that I told you about earlier, where I once received the criticism of, oh, I think you over edit your photos too much. And that was back with portraits. I literally didn't want to touch Lightroom or Photoshop or go anywhere near an editing program. That that voice was in my head even 10 years later. So slowly over time, I've found to be more comfortable. But I remember at the time I had noticed a lot of the younger photographers are really going overboard with their photos. And maybe it was that criticism that worked its way in. I don't know. But I think it's finally made its way out to the point where I'm comfortable with my own editing process and whatnot. But yeah, there's definitely a fine balance. So,
absolutely.
It's a fine there.
Absolutely. We're going to have to wrap up shortly. I just want to know if there's any other photographers out there that you think I need to be talking to on the podcast.
Okay. You mean like storm photographer?
Don't have to be storm, but I'm more than happy to talk storm or.
Okay. I would think some of the ones that I know that are on social media that you could get a hold of, I think as far as, I don't know if you've done a video with JC Crawford yet of East Coast Ken.
No, I haven't yet. I do want to though.
He's a great one. And also there's a photographer, Alex Rosell, who's a really big up and coming storm photographer.
Okay. Haven't seen really any of his work.
He hasn't been on Blue Sky as much often, but he's a good one. As well as I would probably say there's also Charlie Bordeaux. He hasn't been much on Blue Sky either, but he is another storm photographer. And then East Coast Ken has so many, it's a great arts collective and they have so many wonderful photographers on there. There's another one, I don't know her last name or her last name. Her name's Alicia. She's on my page. She takes a lot of beautiful landscapes. I think she would be interesting to speak with also. So those are some recommendations that I have. Rena, I don't know if Rena's ever been on your show from East Coast Ken.
No, not yet.
No. Okay. She's also great. Those are my favorites from Blue Sky.
Awesome. Thank you. I've only got one more question for you. And for many people, it's the most important question that I ask. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
No.
Okay.
No pineapple on pizza. That is not acceptable. How about you?
I don't mind. If it's there, I'll eat it. If it's not something I order though. It's just, it's just another topping to me.
Yeah, no pineapple on pizza. Not okay.
Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. Where can people find your work?
Most people can find my work I'm on Blue Sky at Stimpy Cole. And I've recently put back up one second. I believe I sent the link to you.
Yeah.
A website that I came up, but most of what I post is on Blue Sky and on Twitter at Stimpy Cole. And there's stimpycole.myportfolio.com. But most of my links are on my social media pages. I have a Linktree address so that you can access my work from there.
All right, no worries. Also, I'll make sure there's links to everything in the show notes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I was very nervous and I've been sick for the last week, so my prep is a little weak, but it was great talking with you and I really enjoyed it. And I really appreciate you having me as a guest. It's very flattering and honoring. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you once again. Have you ever had an experience that sorry, I'm going to start that again. Have you ever had an experience where you felt awe? Leave a comment below. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com along with prints, photography gear. I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram and Facebook and Blue Sky. Don't forget to comment and subscribe because it really helps this podcast to be seen. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.